Before we lock the doors and face what's coming, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because in the world we are discussing today, information is the only currency that doesn't lose its value. And I want you on the right side of the survival curve. Imagine the silence. It's not the quiet of a peaceful night. It's the heavy, suffocating silence of a grid that has gone down and stayed down. The sirens stopped 3 days ago. The 911 dispatchers have long since abandoned their posts to be with their own families. You are sitting in your living room, and the threat isn't a gang of looters kicking at your front door. It is something much smaller, much quieter, and infinitely more lethal. A slip of a knife while opening a can of beans, a jagged nail on a boarded up window, or a blister that popped while hauling water. In the old world, the world of yesterday, this was an inconvenience. In this new reality, where the hospitals are dark tombs and the pharmacies have been stripped bare by the panic, that minor cut is a biological ticking clock. The golden hour, that precious window where professional medical intervention guarantees survival, is gone. You're no longer just a homeowner. You are the chief medical officer of a collapsing ecosystem. Most of you are sitting on a fatal misconception right now. You believe you are prepared because you bought a 40-piece first aid kit from a big box store. You have a box full of colorful adhesive bandages, a few dried out alcohol wipes, and a tube of antibiotic ointment that expired 6 months ago. That is not a medical kit. That is a placebo. That kit assumes a doctor is coming. It assumes that if the infection spreads, you can just drive to the ER for a cycle of intravenous antibiotics. When that safety net is cut, your decorative band-aids are about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. The real enemy here is sepsis. It is a microscopic apex predator that doesn't care how many guns you have or how much gold you've buried. It hunts by exploiting the smallest breach in your skin, turning your body's own heat into an incubator and shutting down your organs one by one. But you are not going to let that happen. We are going to turn your kitchen, your bathroom, and your garage into a high-functioning field hospital. We are going to use physics, chemistry, and the ruthless application of household items to stop the biological rot before it starts. We are going to take back control. The first step in this war is establishing a sterile field because you cannot treat a wound in a chaotic environment. Your kitchen table is currently covered in dust, invisible bacteria, and the residue of daily life. If you lay a patient down there, you are introducing 10,000 new enemies to their bloodstream. You need to manufacture a clean room. Go to your supply closet and grab that gallon of bleach and a roll of heavy-duty plastic sheeting or even trash bags. You are going to mix a solution of 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. This is your scorched earth policy. Scrub down a specific, isolated area, a table or a countertop, until the chemical smell burns your nose. Then, tape down the plastic sheeting over the surface and wipe that down too. This creates a non-porous barrier between your patient and the filth of the world. The science here is simple: protein denaturation. The bleach destroys the cell walls of bacteria and viruses upon contact. By defining this zone, you psychologically shift from living room to operating theater. Nothing enters this zone unless it has been sanitized. You have just carved out a sanctuary of order in a world of entropy. Now that you have a place to work, you need to address the wound itself. The biggest mistake rookies make is thinking that cleaning a wound means scrubbing it with hydrogen peroxide or alcohol. Do not do this. Pouring rubbing alcohol into a deep, open cut destroys healthy tissue, kills the cells trying to heal you, and creates a layer of dead flesh that bacteria love to eat. Instead, you are going to the pantry for the salt. You need to create a saline irrigation solution that matches the salinity of human blood. Boil a liter of water, rolling boil for at least 5 minutes to kill pathogens, and dissolve exactly 9 grams of salt into it. That's about 2 teaspoons. Let it cool to room temperature. This is an isotonic solution. It flushes out debris and bacteria without shocking the cells or causing swelling. You aren't just washing, You are hydraulically blasting the enemy out of the trench. Use a turkey baster or a clean plastic bag with a pinhole in the corner to create a high-pressure stream. You flush that wound until you are absolutely certain the only thing left inside is raw, clean tissue. Once the wound is clean, you have to deal with the bacterial load that remains microscopic and hidden. If you don't have pharmaceutical antibiotics, you have to use osmotic pressure to weaponize your pantry. Reach for the white sugar and the bottle of betadine or povidone iodine. If you don't have iodine, just the sugar will work in a pinch, but the combination is a nuclear option known as sugardine. Mix the sugar and iodine into a thick paste, the consistency of peanut butter. Pack this paste directly into the open wound. It sounds insane to put sugar, which feeds bacteria, into a cut. But here is the physics. The concentration of sugar is so high that it creates a hypertonic environment. It literally sucks the water out of the bacterial cells through osmosis, causing them to implode and die. Bacteria cannot develop resistance to physics. This paste also draws lymph fluid to the wound, accelerating healing, while the iodine acts as a broad-spectrum antiseptic. You are using the same technique Egyptians used on the battlefield, and it works just as well today as it did 3,000 years ago. Let's talk about closure. You have a gaping laceration, the kind that needs stitches, but you have no needles, no suture thread, and your hands are shaking too much to sew flesh. Even if you did, you need to close the gate, but you cannot seal infection inside. This is where your garage becomes your pharmacy. Grab the superglue, cyanoacrylate. This was originally discovered during World War II for gun sights, but medics quickly realized it could seal wounds in seconds. The trick is the application. You never, ever squirt glue inside the wound. That creates a hard barrier that prevents healing and traps bacteria deep in the tissue, guaranteeing an abscess. Instead, you pinch the skin edges together, bringing them into perfect alignment, and you apply a thin layer of glue across the top, bridging the two sides like a microscopic bridge. You hold it for 60 seconds until it polymerizes. You have just created a waterproof, airtight seal that holds the skin in place so the body can knit itself back together. It is a chemical suture that requires zero training to apply, only a steady hand and the discipline to follow the rules. Sometimes the wound is in a high tension area, like a knee or an elbow, and glue isn't enough. It will crack as soon as you move. You need mechanical support, but you don't have medical steri-strips. You have duct tape, but you don't just slap a piece of tape over it. That's an infection trap. You are going to manufacture butterfly sutures. Cut a strip of duct tape, then cut small triangles out of the middle of the strip on both sides, leaving a narrow bridge in the center. It should look like an hourglass. Flame sterilize your scissors before you do this. Stick one wide end of the tape to the skin on one side of the wound. Pull it tight to close the gap and stick the other side down. The narrow waist of the tape goes over the cut, allowing the wound to breathe and drain if necessary, while the wide wings anchor it to the skin. You place these every quarter inch. You are using the tensile strength of the tape to do the work of your skin, mechanically taking the load off the injury so it can fuse. What happens if you're too late? The infection has set in. The red streaks are climbing the arm. The fever is spiking. You need to manage the systemic temperature because a fever over 104 degrees begins to cook the brain. You don't have Tylenol. You need thermodynamics. You're going to use evaporative cooling. Strip the patient down and wrap them in a wet sheet soaked in tepid, not cold water. If you use ice water, you will shock the system and cause shivering, which actually raises body temperature. You want tepid water. As the water evaporates from the sheet, it pulls heat energy away from the body. It is a manual radiator. You fan the patient to accelerate the evaporation. You are manually regulating their thermodynamics because their internal thermostat is broken. You monitor them constantly. If they start to shiver, you stop. You are walking a razor's edge between cooking them and freezing them, and your attention to detail is the only thing keeping them balanced. Finally, the silent killer in a sick room is dehydration. A fever, burns through water, and if the patient stops urinating, their kidneys will shut down and the toxins will build up in their blood. Water alone is not enough. If you just pour water into them, you dilute their electrolytes and can cause heart failure. You need to mix an oral rehydration solution, ORS. This is the most important chemical recipe you will ever learn. 1 liter of boiled water, 6 level teaspoons of sugar, and half a level teaspoon of salt. The ratio must be precise. This specific combination exploits the sodium glucose co-transport mechanism in the small intestine. Basically, the sugar unlocks the cell door so the salt and water can get in. Without the sugar, the salt doesn't absorb. Without the salt, the water doesn't stay. This simple potion has saved more lives in the third world than any fancy surgical robot. It keeps the blood volume up, keeps the kidneys flushing toxins, and buys the body time to fight the infection. The philosophy here is brutal but liberating. Nobody is coming to save you. The ambulance is rusting in a depot somewhere, and the ER is a dark hallway filled with ghosts. But you don't need them. You have stripped away the luxury of delegation. You are no longer the helpless victim waiting for a man in a white coat to dispense magic pills. You are the master of your biological domain. By understanding the mechanics of infection, how bacteria breed, how osmosis works, how skin fuses, you replace fear with competence. You look at a bottle of bleach, a bag of sugar, and a tube of superglue, and you don't see junk. You see a surgical suite. Return to that moment in the living room. The silence is still there, pressing against the boarded up window, but the panic is gone. Your patient is stable. The wound is flushed, packed with sugardine, and bridged with cyanoacrylate. The fever is breaking under the cool dampness of the sheet. You smell the bleach in the air, sharp and clean. You check the pulse, steady, strong. You did this, not with a prescription pad, but with the contents of your pantry and the sheer refusal to let biology dictate your fate. You have hardened your home against the invisible enemy. You are the first and last line of defense. Now, I want to know, go to your pantry right now and tell me in the comments, what is the one item you have in bulk that could double as medical gear? Hit like if you learned something that might save a life, and stay safe out there.